Gulf Coast region of Texas bracing for their share of the moisture. Flash flood watches from Houston to Austin down towards San Antonio. Galveston also under this flash flood watch because that tropical moisture now focused into this part of the deep south. So all of that tropical moisture along with that stalled front, that's going to help to focus the rainfall, really continue to wring out this tropical moisture. Upper winds are going to provide very little in terms of actually moving this front. So it's going to be sticking around as we go through the middle part of the week. So tomorrow, notice the scattered thunderstorms from portions of Arkansas into Texas, northern Louisiana. Wednesday, a lot of the same areas could see more thunderstorms, more heavy rainfall. Even on Thursday, we'll be watching still areas north of Houston, around Dallas, Little Rock, northern Louisiana, where we'll pick up more potential for heavy rainfall. So still to come, anywhere from 3 to 5+ inches down through southwest Arkansas into northeast Texas. Areas right along the Texas state line with Louisiana, you could see 3 to 5 inch totals. But notice a good portion of the area, that darker shade of green, that's 2, 2.5, even up to 3 inches of rainfall possible. So Mike, we've got to watch other areas as well. We've been focused on Louisiana, but we've got the Gulf, the South Central, including Texas, and then parts of the Midwest too.
Yeah, it's on the move now.
Yeah.
Now it stretches right up into the Midwest, and obviously Dr. Forbes was talking about the tornado warning we have, but flood line to be hit. Our second story of the tropics. Here's Alex.
Yeah, we got to talk tropics because, of course, we've been watching the tropical moisture down near the Gulf Coast, but looking out into the Atlantic, there's an area to watch, and it's Invest 98L. Of course, we've got 2 areas to watch in the Pacific, but, everybody with interest here along the Gulf and Florida keeping a very close eye on now what's coming off of Africa as we enter into late August and, of course, September. Here is Invest 98L. Right now, winds 30 miles an hour, pressure down to 1,008 millibars, and the National Hurricane Center giving this a 50-50 shot of development within the next 5 days. We're going to talk to Michael Lowry a little bit more about this one coming up.
Right.
Look at that. I'm even done early.
Look at you. All right, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on.
Reports have been saying.
Yeah, be very, very
down
careful.
and up, down and up.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about tropical weather now. We're joined by our hurricane specialist, Michael Lowry, for a look at the Atlantic, which has now Invest 98L.
It does. It's middle of August. We get these disturbances that come off of Africa every 3-4 days, and we have one of these that came off of Africa over the weekend. We have to look in the far eastern Atlantic. Those the bottom right part of your screen down here. That's Invest 98L. This is just what we call these areas that are a little better organized, that we want to look a little more closely at to see whether or not we might get a tropical depression or a named storm. Mike and Alex, you can see, though, that there is some convection. There is some thunderstorm growth near where the center of this low pressure area is. And it looks like, at least in the short term, that things would be kind of favorable for this to kind of develop very slowly.
Right. And, we've been watching and talking about, what the setup's like over the Atlantic. We were talking about the high pressure area last week. You mentioned that things might not be too favorable for this moving beyond the next few days. Yeah.
And in the short term, I mean, it's got a little bit of an assist from the atmosphere. It's caught up in the monsoon trough. It's this area where we have winds coming to.
The area that you were talking about, you showed this to us before, the Saharan air layer that comes off of Africa, that a lot of times becomes the thing that just chokes a storm off and says, okay, I've had it with you. Take this. Here's some dry dust. Here's some warm air, and deal with that. And this may run into some of that.
It looks like it might. This is, if it does develop, it's going to develop somewhere in that hatched orange area. Here's what I'll say about this, though, it makes this a little more interesting, is that if this gets out in front and it can moisten up the atmosphere a little bit, sometimes this is sort of the sacrificial lamb, if you will, that the next disturbance that comes along will actually have a better atmosphere, an atmosphere that's more moist and more favorable for development. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the atmosphere kind of moistens up a little bit. Even if this doesn't do anything or has no consequence for us, then the next disturbance, because as I was saying, we get these regularly here every few days. If the next disturbance that comes along takes advantage of what's left in its wake.
Yeah, and now we head into the second half of August and then especially September. Time to watch.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Michael, thank you very much.